in terms of the various initiatives that India had undertaken, Look East, Act East, Sagarmala, and other initiatives. So I think that skill development and the other initiatives. So that needs to be furthered in addition to consolidating the voice of the Global South and the G20 meeting in New Delhi before. India will be the BRICS chair next year, and preparations have already begun. I think naming of a Sherpa will be around in next month. So that is the context. As far as the bilateral relations are concerned, I think we are moving ahead towards a precarious stability with China. Precarious because we signed only disengagement and grazing patrolling, but not de-escalation and de-induction of troops. So that is still hanging. But Prime Minister, in his 50-minute meeting with President Xi in Tianjin, mentioned about peace and stability on the border prevailing. So we should expect some normalization happening in the near future. Several things were mentioned. The Manasarovar Yatra has been resumed, direct flights, visas, etc. But there is a balance here again. In terms of visas, the Indian embassy consulates are asking the Chinese to give a 1 lakh renminbi, that's about 12 lakh rupees equivalent bank account details in order to get a visa to visit India. So this is probably to avoid junk travelers and probably attract more moneyed because generally the Chinese don't eat in the restaurants outside. They carry their noodle packs and so hotel industry may not be benefiting out of the tourists if they. But remember that before COVID, 180 million Chinese visited abroad. Even if India attracts a small portion of this, it would be substantial in number. But we have not seen this trend because Communist Party cells control the tourist agencies and they divert the traffic towards their friendly oriented countries. We saw China weaponizing tourism for South Korea when it deployed the THAAD, weaponizing tourism for Taiwan when they elected Tsai Ing-wen and Lai Ching-te, the DPP candidates. They have also weaponized tourism in relation to Malaysia and Thailand when the MH370 and other incidents took place. So we have to be realistic in this on tourism. And so I see there is, China is also balancing because soon after Dr. Jaishankar's visit in July, they have announced the dam construction and Premier Li Qiang had gone to Tibet to attend to those dam construction activities. So very high level leadership signaling is there in terms of Tibet. President Xi himself visited Tibet twice and there is a lot of traction happening on the highways and railways from Sichuan to Tibet and so on. So we have to be prepared for the border stability in the longer run. The other measures for improving ties include, of course, trade and investment. We have not removed the press note number 3, which restricts the Chinese investment in India, even though Finance Minister Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman mentioned about Chinese investment, but she expressed also caution in regard to the Chinese investment. So we may not be able to attract huge investments. And we need to be realistic even in here because in the last 20 years, the total Chinese investment in India is no more than $8 billion. For an economy of 19 trillion, 8 billion is the Chinese investment. What they're doing is, of course, trying to pressurize India to open up the consumer market for the EV sector as well as for the other consumer durables. It appears that we are making some inroads in this EV sector, etc. MG, you may have seen on the roads, which is a Chinese acquired company, Morrison Garrison. So this is possibly the way that it looks like. But we have blocked the 5G, Huawei 5G in its trials. So no more on the telecom sector. But one of the interesting thing is both in Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and in Maldives, the Huawei 5G networks are quite, and of course in Pakistan. As part of the CPEC, 1/3 of that is Huawei fiber optics. And we also heard how Rawalpindi was connected to the Western Theater Command in Chengdu with the fiber optics, and a brigadier level officer from the Pakistan Army stationed in Western Theater Command for live, kind of communication, etc., etc. So we have to be realistic on that front. And Prime Minister mentioned about no double standards on terrorism. This is related to the 1267 committee as well as post-Pahalgam terror attacks. The mention of Chinese role in the 1267 committee of the United Nations. So we should expect more traction in this regard. What are the other areas of improving relations? You may recall that there are 30 dialogue processes between India and China. The strategic dialogue between foreign ministries, the foreign secretaries, the annual defense dialogue, the youth exchange, media to media, think tank to think tank, financial dialogue, steel dialogue, renminbi rupee kind of exchange dialogue. There are so many of these. None of these were resumed so far, which means that in the next year or so, we probably will have more discussions on this. During Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit in August, we have mentioned an expert group, a working group, border management related. But strangely, there was a mention about delimitation of the border. Sir, you have been the special representative for long with the Chinese. I would like to ask a question, sir, Mr. Narayanan. The SR mechanism is to clarify the LAC, but we are using words like delimitation, which is the next step after the clarification of LAC. So it indicates to some progress in the border talks, even though SR mechanism, the 2.5 phases that were over in 24 talks, is related to the LAC clarification, but we are using the words like delimitation. So I really wonder if there is a major progress, because after delimitation, it is demarcation and then the final agreement and then the parliamentary exchange of ratifications on the border. So are we in this really exciting stage of border settlement? So I'm not clear about this, so I'm raising that issue as a major, because that has triggered a lot of uncertainty in bilateral relations between India and China. And the last question that was addressed to me was in relation to China's role in South Asia and India's role in Southeast Asia. We did see China's role increasing substantially after Prime Minister Oli's visit last December. They formally joined the BRI, even though they joined the BRI in 2016, but concrete steps were undertaken with the announcement of various initiatives on the BRI. But now that Gen Z has removed Prime Minister Oli and the turbulence in Nepal, we probably will be affected. And I agree with you, sir, on the neighborhood becoming grim in terms of the kind of incidents we saw in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in Maldives. Although Maldives is kind of stabilized with the India Out campaign being removed and recent visit by the Prime Minister. So we have some semblance of neighborhood restructuring that is happening. So I stop here by saying that actually India is in a sweet spot with the growth rates. And if the growth rates are to be maintained, we probably have more of these things to be resolved. Infrastructure, there is so much of investment in the road, railway, and the shipyards, fiber optics, so on. There is also the manufacturing sector has not really taken off. We expected this to go to 24% of our GDP, but it is still around 18-19%. So that is the problematic areas. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Srikanth, and we'll come back to you with a lot of questions that come to you. Now I request Mr. Nandan Unikishan to share your insights, sir, and may I request you to please restrict the timing to 10 to 15 minutes so that we'll have more time for the Q&A. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate your understanding.
Thank you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. Let me start by thanking you for inviting me again. Your invitation alone would have been enough, but when Satyamurthy joined your invitation, the request became absolutely irresistible. Thank you to the Madras Management Association for once again inviting me to speak. Sir, Mr. Narayan, it was a pleasure to listen to you, your sweeping view of the world. All I can say in short is Delhi misses your wisdom. You would be a great contribution to the discussions in Delhi.
Delhi fellow.
Well, let's restrict to Delhi at this point of time. Of course, the people who preceded me, Indrani and Srikanth, I don't need to say anything about them. My respect for their expertise is very well known, and their insights into both the US and China were enlightening as usual. I have been asked to speak on Russia and Indo-Russian relations in the wake of the onslaught from the United States, which is what I will do, and I'll hopefully finish in about 7 to 10 minutes. But prior to getting into Indo-Russian relations, I think we have to spend a couple of minutes looking at what is happening in Ukraine, in the war between Russia and Ukraine. And here I'm afraid I will differ with Indrani fairly, literally complete opposite, for the simple reason that I don't think anybody in the world today sees any option but a Russian victory on the ground, and I'm talking of a military victory. The problem in our understanding why it's a Russian military probably stems from the fact that we are not clear as to what Russia views as a victory. And Russia does not view, in this particular context, territory as a victory. The Russian view is very simple. Ukrainian national neutrality, in other words, no membership of NATO, and an incapability by Ukraine to either become a platform or to be able to launch any attack against Russia in the future. I think Russia has reached a stage where those two primary objectives are, I would say, 95% achieved. So I really don't see an option on the ground to a Russian victory. In this context, of course, Europe is the one, as many have mentioned already, Europe is the one player that needs to readjust its worldview. Mr. Trump, by the pivot of the last 48 hours, clearly indicates that he understands that Russia is winning, and he's decided to wash his hands off so as not to be blamed for this. And he's decided that Ukraine can win back all its territory with the help of Europe, and he's happy to supply any arms they want, but he is not going to get beyond that. So this is the rough context in which I am going to look at Indo-Russian relationships. I also disagree about the fact that Trump is seeking any kind of deal, economic or otherwise, with the Russians. Trump is seeking to keep Russia as distant as possible from China, but that does not mean that he is necessarily looking at having a serious engagement with the Russians. In fact, let me be very clear. I believe Trump is not averse to the war in Ukraine continuing if Europe is handling it. He would like Russia to be distracted in Europe and stay away from China while he concentrates on dealing with the challenge that China poses to the United States. His vision of the US, of the challenge of China, may not be one that impresses us. But the point is, he looks at it from a very different perspective than what we look at it. So this is something that the Indians have to factor in when looking at the Indo-Russian relationship. One of the primary problems that I think today stand in the way of a serious economic development between India and Russia is the question of sanctions. I'm not talking of the latest 25% tariffs or 50% tariffs on oil that will get negotiated and will get removed. India will also adjust. We will substantially reduce the purchase of oil from Russia from its current levels. And that is understandable because the United States today is, in many ways, a far more important relationship for us, particularly given our developmental agenda. But we have to keep in mind that we cannot totally eschew our relationship with the Russian Federation. And therefore, steps will have to be taken to keep that pot boiling, as it were, to be colloquial. And in that context, I'll come back to the war with Ukraine, the Russian war with Ukraine. I think India needs to recalibrate its understanding of where that war is, what kind of outcome we are going to see in that war. And that recalibration will be required in the context of, for example, if I was a gentleman sitting in the Indian Foreign Office, the question I would be asking myself is there any negative that I see in a Russian victory in Ukraine? Any negative for India? And second question I'll be asking myself, is there any negative I see? Is there any positive I see in Russia not having a victory in Ukraine? And the answers to these questions would be the ones that would be determining the recalibration of my current policies towards Russia. But overall, I would say that we have handled the situation well. We are equal contributors in military terms to both sides. We are equal contributors in economic humanitarian aid to both sides. I'm advisedly saying both sides. And of course, on the economic front, our purchase of Russian oil is of immense help to the Russians, given that they need areas to market their oil. There was a question that, Mr. Group Captain Vijay Kumar had asked me to look at is about, the long conversation Mr. Putin had with Mr. Modi during the SCO summit, and how will the relationship between the Russians, the Indians, and the Chinese develop in the context of BRICS and SCO and other things. Well, I think I personally am skeptical about RIC at this point of time. I mean, the Russia, India, China relationship, because the India-China relationship is still at a very nascent stage in terms of getting on its feet. After the trials and tribulations that followed the Galwan in 2020. But I'm also very clear that if any Asian security architecture is to be evolved to give some stability to this area, then it would be impossible without Russia, India, and China coming to some kind of common page of understanding, even if it is the barest minimum. So to that extent, I think the three countries would have to interact with each other and try to evolve their views to a level of understanding what is the basic minimum of each other's concerns. As far as BRICS and SCO are concerned, I don't think that the euphoria about these presenting alternative visions of the world and all are valid at this point of time yet. Yes, both of them are platforms in which countries are voicing their unhappiness with the current rules of the game in the world. But what is more interesting is that the rule maker till now, the United States, is also unhappy with the rules of the world as they exist today and wants to rework them. So therefore, this flux is, as Mr. Narayan said, a grim time. But I agree with him, there is no need for us to be pessimistic for the simple reason, and this is where I hope we should understand, I am grateful that we are not yet a great power. I am grateful, and I agree with Mr. Narayan, that we tend to attribute to ourselves far greater importance than we actually have on the world stage. And we should be grateful for that, because there are some choices that we are not being asked to make, and we don't have to make them. There are pressures being put on us to make us make certain choices, but we have to be very clear in our own minds that these are not necessarily choices that we have to make. We have to be governed by our national interest, and our national interest has to be driven by our domestic policies, by the need for domestic development. And the final thought I leave is, if we have flawed domestic policies, we will never have a flawless foreign policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I think we have over 720 participants watching it live on various social media portals. I have a number of questions. I will go through the questions one by one, and it's addressed specifically to the distinguished speakers. Wherever general questions, I will do it, and whoever is willing could take. The first, I'll go to Mr. M.K. Narayanan. So the question addressed to you is from Mr. Raghunath from Chennai. How do you assess the strategic implications of the recent Pakistan-Saudi Arabia Defense Pact? Could it significantly alter South Asia's security environment and India's threat perceptions? You mentioned about it, but you would like to elaborate.
No, I did mention about it. I think it's too early to speculate as to how far it would go and to what extent it would go. But very clearly, I would say it is one of the black spots that has arisen in recent times. We thought that we had a warm relationship with Saudi Arabia. I myself made several trips when I was NSA, and King Abdullah was there, Salman's father. And there was a great deal of understanding that at least the father displayed as far as India was concerned. And this step, I think, is certainly, I mean, we will not admit it, we will not acknowledge it, I know, but it clearly is a major slap in our face. I mean, at the risk of being actually highly negative, I think we have tended, our foreign policy in recent years has tended to spend too much time on wooing the United States. We have forgotten, as I did mention, that our major areas of interest were West Asia, South Asia, and parts of Southeast Asia, and all that has been neglected. And I say that with a sense of determination. I know that the present dispensation will create that. We have neglected him. whole lot of things have taken place in West Asia and we are nowhere in the picture. Foreign policy is essentially a matter not of talking about multipolarity and that kind of thing. It's nursing countries and building relationships of various kinds. We have failed, and we have failed signally in that. I think the Saudi Pakistani nuclear umbrella pact is, the implications are serious. It's definitely a slap in our face, and I think we need to be extremely careful. And I think we need to move Saudi Arabia back into at least a situation of being equidistant, if not our friend.
A follow-up question from Mr. Ansari from Nagpur on the similar lines is, his question is, given your experience as a National Security Advisor, NSA, what diplomatic or security measures should India consider to prevent being strategically sidelined by emerging Pakistan Gulf alignments?
Well, I'm no longer in government, and I hope you would not convey. I think Indian diplomacy has got entwined or into a belief that it is, as I use the word, arrived. We think that we are now amongst the powers of the world, and we are. Look at where we were in 1953. In 1953, when India did not count, when we had to wait every day for PL-480 ships to give us our food. We had no guns, we had no things like that. Yet we were negotiating the Korean Treaty. Today, with all the, and as Mr. Srikanth Kondapalli was mentioning, and there are several aspects of what we have to be proud of. Yet we have not. Our foreign policy has not kept pace with our economic and other. Largely because I think there's been a tendency in recent years, maybe inclusive during, even when I was in the Prime Minister's office, of trying to tell people how to do things and talk about it. I think we talk too much. We talk too much, we do very little. I mean, the Galwan episode, for instance, I think is a major foreign policy failure. The incident there, none of you know what happens on the border. I have trekked on the border as a young officer way back in 1959, 60, you know. The issue there, these are constant issues, border issues, the skill is in trying to prevent a small incident becoming a major issue. And I think that's happening all the time in recent years because we are. And since we spend so much time talking about diplomacy and new policies, and you're talking all the time, our diplomats are talking the best language. Nobody talks English any longer in the world, excepting Indians. So I think we are completely out of step with reality. We don't know when to bend, and we know. I mean, if I know Indrani Bhakti made a very stirring speech on what we need to do. I have an even simpler answer to it. If we have got many of these big business houses that we have, the Ambanis and the Adanis, which are mollycoddled by the Indian establishment, why don't they invest in the United States as Japanese have done? The Japanese, I mean, we may say, oh, they gave in, they ducked, or they sort of. Mr. Trump is trying to get as much money as possible. That's what we understand by diplomacy. You can talk about him. I don't think he understands anything about BRICS. He understands about anything else, and he understands money. Then deal with money. If you don't know how to deal with it, you will get many of our financiers to deal with it. I don't think the Ministry of External Affairs understands anything about this. They're still talking about Gladstone and Palmerston and whatnot. I think there is a major gap in our foreign policy, which I think we need to address.
Thank you, sir. Very strong, great insights. And the question from Rajiv addressed to Mr. Srikanth Kondapalli, sir. He's addressed two questions which I combined it. What he says, with India balancing Quad, BRICS and SCO, do you see India at risk of strategic overreach or alignment advantage in complex global order? We also wonder how might China view India's growing role in the Quad, especially in the light of Beijing continuing support to Pakistan And what counter strategies could India adopt in this context?
I would like to add a question to this question. Why are we in Quad?
Yes, sir. Over to you, Mr. Kondam.
Thank you very much. I think we do not know whether the Quad meeting is going to be held this year, meaning President Trump will be able to visit India or not. But possibility of Vice President Vance visiting or a virtual meeting is also not out of the possibilities. Yes, indeed, the situation is in a flux. There are a lot of issues that India is currently grappling with. So I think this is a little bit complicated matter. A lot of things are still in the evolving stage. But we see that we have two parallel tracks happening. One is on the tariff-related issues where there is a lot of negative news. But we also see that NASA and ISRO are collaborating on the recent launches. In fact, coinciding with the tariff announcement by the Trump administration, the next day we had the NASA and ISRO collaborating. Secondly, we have the exercises conducted in Alaska. We have also the defense cooperation related matters being discussed. So these two are running on two parallel tracks. The economic issues on one track, the defense cooperation on the other track. We signed long ago the BECA, SISMOA, and other agreements, which suggest that things are moving on in that direction and in the defense related and the Malabar exercises are on track, and the other defense related things are on track. So this is a fluid situation. It is difficult to maneuver through at the moment.
Thank you, sir. The question which has come on the group also is from Edward. You want to know what I wish to know the China's AI brain research. What is the status of it? Whether they succeed or not? What actions? Very briefly, because we got a lot of questions. Very briefly, because come on.
I think I answered that in the chat.
Answered is okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll pause, sir. We'll pause. Now the question is from Jay from Bangalore, addressed to Indrani Bakshi. He says, with US revising H-1B1 visa rules, what new terms of consequences do you foresee for Indian IT sector, unskilled professionals, and what deployment levers could India use to mitigate impact or simultaneously strengthening the innovation and reduce over-dependence on US opportunities? You mentioned your speech briefly about this, but we would like to elaborate, madam.
Atmanirbhar.
So just to say that the H-1B visa remains a sovereign right of any nation. And for an H-1B visa seeker, it is not like he or she is a representative of the Indian government. It's a choice that they make to go to America to live there as an H-1B visa. If you have a problem there, just go somewhere else. And the fact that President Trump wants to make it more difficult to issue H-1B visas is not unique to President Trump. Just by the way, if you remember back in the day, Barack Obama actually made Bangalore into a verb. He said we did not want it to be Bangalored. That was the day. That was back then, and they have been trying to reduce Indian H-1B visas. You know, it's a question of it's an individual's question. I think there is a fairly robust technology ecosystem in India, or there is the rest of the world to choose to be. H-1 visa is not a right. It is a grant, but they can choose that back. Yes, you might say that they will suffer, but that's okay. I mean, that's on them. That's not on India. It's not Indian. I mean, for decades, India, I think, made a mistake by putting H-1B on the diplomatic uh, talking points. That is not, we should not have done it. The only reason to put that on a diplomatic talking point is the fact that um, foreign remittances to India from the US still outstrips every other source of remittance. That was the only reason. But otherwise, it's your personal choice. If you want an H-1B visa, next time somebody applies for it, I hope they can shell out the $100,000.
Many of them don't even get that much of salaries annually.
And I mean, really, it's like saying that I have a right to come to India just because you have a visa. There's no right. It's a sovereign.
True, madam. Thank you. Thank you. Now we have a question from Mr. Srivatsava addressed to Mr. Nandan Unikrishnan. So his question to you is, India has benefited by continuing to import discounted Russian oil despite US and European pressure. How sustainable is this approach for India in the medium term? We also want to know, could India defiance of Western sanctions on Russian oil be seen as a beginning of more assertive India independent foreign policy, and what does this mean to India, US, Europe relations? And you also want to know, today the Commerce Minister said they are going to import oil from US actually. So what are all these implications for India today?
Sustainability is basically a question of numbers. I think India will have to carefully calculate what the tariffs mean for India economically. What are the benefits that we get from buying Russian oil? And juggling of these figures should get you to the point where we are today. That is that we are reducing the purchases of oil from Russia because obviously we have calculated that we need to assuage the hurt feelings of the United States by buying a little bit more oil from them. So we will play this game. We will balance here and there. There is no doubt that cheap Russian oil, and now there will be greater discounts, will benefit India. But we will have to be very careful about upsetting the apple cart with the Americans. As far as the Europeans are concerned, I think we are overestimating what Europe can do, because Europe is going or is on the edge of a recession. They cannot afford to have prices at the petrol pumps go up. And the prices at the petrol pumps are kept where they are because of their imports of Indian petroleum products. So therefore, I think Europe is not so much of a problem. The United States, we have to be careful with.
Thank you, sir. There's a common question, maybe whoever would like to take it. This has come from Raghunath. How can India strike a sustainable balance between its relations with US, Russia, and China without compromising the strategic autonomies? Anybody could.
Indrani wanted to add something to the earlier question.
Yes, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that we now have an interesting bargaining chip, which is India's ability to refine oil into petroleum products. That is, we even have supplied diesel to Ukraine and out of Russian oil. The second is you remove the idea that Russian oil is sanctioned is all wrong. Russian oil, there is no sanctions on Russian oil. There's a price cap. And India has utilized that price cap as it should. We cannot be put into this false moral position that we cannot buy Russian oil. What much more important is if we don't buy oil, then it's not like the rest of the world is awash in oil. If you contract oil buys from the US today, the US is currently tapped out. It will be a few years before you will be able to take the deliveries on that particular oil buy. The same as for LNG. So it's not like, and the world is no longer in a place where it can take a $20 hike in oil prices, which is exactly what would happen if we shut out Russian oil and moved to the Middle East oil. In fact, if we have to remember that it was because oil prices, of the fear that oil prices would go through the ceiling, that the former Biden administration actually did speak to the Indian government at the time to say that they would be fine with India buying Russian oil. And we tend to forget this, obviously, because Trump is on our heads, and also because every European country sort of put that in their talking points to India. But the fact remains that India's first responsibility is to its own people. We would not have been able to take the inflation that would have happened if we did not buy Russian oil. So I don't frankly buy this thing that there is so much of oil around that if I stop Russian oil, I'll suddenly find oil everywhere else in the market. Iran, for instance, is out of the market. Venezuela is out of the market. So there remains really not that many sources of oil. So
It's a question from an IIT Madras professor. He says, it's addressed to Mr. Narayanan. Having been NSA during the Indo-US nuclear deal, what lessons can India draw to maintain autonomy while deepening the partnership? Your tips to the people who do matter. How should India strengthen its internal security and intelligence capabilities to better support its global strategic ambitions?
I won't answer the last question because I was in charge of internal security for nearly 40 years. Oh, I don't want to comment on that. But I think the real problem is, and to some extent it's been addressed by Indrani, what is diplomacy? Diplomacy is the art of the possible. We need to have a give and take. The problem is, I think, in more recent years, because we have given ourselves the belief that we are a power that we are part of the reckoning, that we can do what we like, and that we need to negotiate like maybe the United States negotiates with China or somebody else. Let us understand we are dependent on what the world forces are capable of. I feel that India has lost the art of engaging with countries, sort of ducking their head when necessary, stop preaching to the world how it should run its affairs. The very fact that all the countries around India are not friendly to us. I mean, everybody reads messages in this. So if you're a great power, that's not. I mean, in America, the United States is numero uno. So people are willing to listen. We are not. And we must understand that. However great individuals may think that they are, we are not. We have no friends across South Asia, across West Asia, part of Northern Asia. No. So you are in a position where you need to use your diplomatic skills, and you've got enough talent for that. But that cannot come by. I think in the last many years we have got a superiority complex. I think we need to give that up. We need to know when to bend, how to submit, and if you, as I think Indrani said, you need oil. You need to get oil at the lowest prices. If President Trump feels unhappy about it, see what we need to do. Look at what Pakistan did. Pakistan has pandered to Trump. Oh, you may say, oh, it's a weak nation. What rubbish. It has pandered to Trump's desires. He's offered him all kinds of things. Well, of course, we are talking about what Gladstone did and what Palmerston did and whatnot. We are not in that era. You use your strength, you use your skills, and we have got immense strength and immense skill. But don't think that you can talk the language of what happened in the 1930s and the 1920s and whatnot. You're dealing with in the 2030s and whatnot, and therefore, please adjust your life. The India-US nuclear deal, probably one of the most difficult things, was possible only because I was a leader of the team. I can assure you that this would not have been possible but for, because publicly we claimed how brilliant we were. But the fact of the matter is President Bush was somehow came to realize that this would help India. And he felt that India was a friendly country. That's all. He felt that Manmohan Singh was a good man. He was willing to. So whatever the Department of Energy, the Department of State, everybody else tried to do this. And we got the entire support of the Indian community in the United States. I mean, we are not using any of those strengths. We are completely sort of separated from, we're all divided, the country. So I think we need to go back to the old rules of the game. Bend when you have to bend, jump when you have to jump. We have the skills, but I think we are sometimes, like many of us, have outgrown our capabilities. And that's the only thing I have to say. I know it is jarring. It's an old man talking about it, but I don't know what else to say. Thank you.
Brilliant, sir. In the context of today's theme, India, emerging role, evolving global dynamics, I want each one of you to give your final thoughts just for in a minute, less than a minute. With Indian economic clout growing, what steps should be taken to translate the economic strength into global influence? Just your thoughts on this. Start with Nandan.
Sure. I personally think that India's primary challenge is not external, it's internal, it's development. If we want to be a great power, and we should aspire to that, the only way we have towards that is growth, growth, and growth. But we have to keep in mind, and this has been the problem that we've faced in this country for some time, is that our growth is very uneven. And we are not unable to create that necessary trickle-down effect. So therefore, maybe that is an area that we need to concentrate in. Secondly, it's not the government that's going to create more jobs. It is the ability of the government to create a level playing field for others, for private sector, to create jobs. So you cannot have a skewed sort of attitude towards the private sector where one section gets concessions at the expense of everyone else. I think a level playing field, encouragement of the private sector, and growth, that is the answer.
Thank you, sir. I think we have come now. Indrani, you would like to say 30 seconds, your thoughts on this, especially in multilateral forums. How can India...
Well, the entire global multilateral system has to be redefined. I mean, the UN was ineffective, has been ineffective for a long time. WTO has been ineffective for a long time. WHO has been ineffective for a long time. So, honestly, I don't think the old-fashioned ways of the multilateral system can survive. We are in a place today, we don't know what the future holds, but for the present, I think the plurilateral systems that we are building or have been building is what will sustain, and that is something that we should put our attention to.
Thank you. Srikanth, what are your final thoughts on this?
I think I agree with Nandan on the economic focus that we should have. Out of 4 trillion, we have about 1 trillion in exports and imports. And if we have, like China, 40% of our exports, and they have 40% of exports and imports as the GDP, and their footprint has increased partly because of this. And ours is 1/4 of the GDP in terms of exports and imports. So I was just trying to say that if our economic growth rates increase, and as a consequence, the exports and imports increase substantially to at least 30 to 40% of our GDP, then our footprint also increases in one form or the other. You have seen the Voice of Global South 3 meetings. You have seen the multilateral meetings conduct, BRICS, SEO, and others. In the SEO, we have a different agenda now. As the Prime Minister mentioned, addressing all the SEO government leaders, he said we are going beyond the government leaders in startups, in Buddhism, innovation, youth empowerment. So this is a different agenda we have initiated in SEO. It may not bear fruits because most of the SEO governments are authoritarian, and it's pretty difficult to get through the civil society in these places. So I think we need to wait for the economic growth rates to take and result in prosperity.
Thank you, Mr. Kant. I think we have come to the end and 2 hours.
No, I mean,
please, sir. Please.
Group Captain Vijay Kumar, since I had the first word, can I have the last word?
Please, sir. Please, sir. Go ahead, sir.
I having spent now, I think, amongst all the people here, spent more years in this area, I think we need to strengthen the India, Russia, China bonds. I think that, I mean, these are, I mean, definitely China and India are the two of the oldest civilizations. Russia has always been our friend. From the time in 1962 when I first went to.
So you unmute. You have to unmute yourself, sir. Rajaram, can you unmute? I think it's accidentally got muted. Mr. Narayan. Got it, sir.
Sorry, no, coming back to the point, I'm saying that it's important that two of the greatest civilizations of the world, the Chinese and Indian civilizations, must find a way of coming to terms. I think, unlike, I mean, of course, I bow my head to Professor Kondapalli and all that. I don't think that China and India are enemies in any sense of the term. It depends on us as to how we manage these civilizations. Russia has been a true and tried friend of India. So I think we need to strengthen this. And with that, I think everything will fall into place in many ways. Just, as I mentioned, where are we in as far as sport? What is our interest in sport? Are we going to send the Indian Navy to the Pacific Ocean to fire at Chinese ships? I think we've completely lost our bearing. If these three, what I call civilizations, can work together, I think everything else will follow. Indian ability to do so much, and we'll eclipse everyone after that, rather than get involved into whether we are part of BRICS or whether we are part of SARC or whether we are SARC will take anyway. So my point is, this is the last word. I think we must work toward. I think we need Professor Kondapalli to work much harder on him. He has all the facts. I mean, he says China isn't in a sweet spot. It has its problems. Where we can help them, we can shoot them. And we can. I mean, when Putin was president and Benjumabao was prime minister, kind of thing. Nobody talks about it. There was an agreement which we arrived at the point, in which we talked about saying that there will be no change in the transfer of populations at all. They built on some of these things rather than talking in terms of American diplomacy or European diplomacy. So I think that's what I would say should be the take for this meeting.
Thank you, distinguished guest this evening, guest speakers, and brilliant evening. And so many people are watching this, over 800 or thousands will watch over a period. And I'm quite sure that each one of them would have become more wiser, because every day we read different newspapers, we get different insights, and totally confused what one should go. That's why we thought we'll do this program, and at least people, especially the corporate sector, will get some ideas, especially they're going to. They're worrisome, especially the H1B, which are not going to really impact in a big way in the long run with Atmanirbhar. Thank you so much, each one of you. I think you have been distant to honest and the good say what you shared. We have got a digital memento for each one of you. What we do is, through the digital memento, we do a lot of work, CSR work with poor schools, and on behalf of you, we'll present books to these poor children, which will be things because of which you come and do a speaking. Can I have a memento, digital memento, please, Hemant? Yes, This is what we do, sir. Mr. Narayanan, on your behalf, we'll be contributing this book to underprivileged children. And we sincerely appreciate your time and great insights what you have done. And we'll always really appreciate your there. And we look forward to seeing you more at MMA. Can I have the next memento, please?
No. Thank you for not sending me a plaque. I have so many plaques that I don't know what to do with them.
Yes. The next one, Hemant, this I think we got for Indrani Bakshi is there. We'll send it across to you. This plaque and also show the pictures of what we are giving to the children underprivileged. We work with a couple of schools in and around our MMA. Next one, please. This for Srikanth Kondapalli and next one, please. Yeah, Nandan. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for being with us.
Thank you.
And till we meet again, bye-bye and good night, and we'll keep in touch with you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks to each one.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Good night, sir.